Oh, hello everyone. I hope we're all well. Sorry, apologies for not doing a YouTube for a while. Just been really busy. Please live your life according to the way you want to live it. Be kind to your family and friends and your animals. Life's really short, and we need a lot more empathy in the world than we see these days. Just thought I'd cover an ICO which I thought was interesting. It just went by. It was Gibraltar Blockchain Exchange, and it was oversubscribed back in February. They wanted I think the hard target was something like they're looking for initially 10 million US dollars, and they actually got 27 million US dollars in. It was all very quick. They had the pre-sale of 21 million US, and then they got an extra 6 million US, so they actually got 27 mil. And the public sale sort of happened within 9 seconds, so it was very heavily oversubscribed. And I thought it was an interesting ICO just from the point of view of the white paper. Particularly the white paper was quite detailed about AML, anti-money laundering, and know your client, and and due diligence and that sort of thing. So I'm just going to cover that. So basically, I'll just call it Gibraltar Block Exchange, GBX, I should say. I thought their white paper was quite good compared to other white papers that we've seen out there. And there's a recent ICO that's around at the moment called the London Cryptocurrency Exchange. And when you compare GBC's white paper to the London Cryptocurrency Exchange, this one, the London Cryptocurrency Exchange, looks really amateurish and also almost scamish compared to GBC's. And GBC's ICO, as you know, went at 10 cents US, and the London CCE is going at 15 US cents. I haven't looked at the issuance level on the London Cryptocurrency Exchange, but it just seems very scamish in terms of the team and just what they're trying to do. To me, the team's not very good, and I can't find a few of them on LinkedIn and all sorts of things. But anyway, what I did like about GBX was that they warned investors of the risks up front and informed potential buyers to do their due diligence and to not distribute the papers, the white paper, in geographic regions where cryptocurrency is legal. And they did say to investors, please seek professional investment advice, which I thought was very good. Plus, they basically said that it's important that the white paper is seen as a description of a future project, that it is their forward-looking statements, and it's based on their beliefs. But again, it's not in stone, and basically anything can change, and everything is underdeveloped at this stage. You're basically buying startup risk, and obviously it's a work in progress, and things are constantly updated. And I thought that was important too, because so many buyers that I see in the crypto market think that it's all in stone and they're going to absolutely do stuff. As you know, white papers are not audited, and essentially the issuer of cryptocurrency can basically say anything. So I thought it was good that they actually said that in the white paper, and that they were very focused on governance and very focused on anti-money laundering and very focused on know your client. So all clients have to give the appropriate identification, ID and that sort of thing, and also have to comply with GBX's, their compliance and all this sort of thing. And I thought that was quite good. And also to say it in the white paper, that their statements of what they believe to be true at the time they wrote this white paper, but things can change quite quickly. For example, if they don't get their licensing within Gibraltar, or if they don't get their licensing for the exchange overseas as well. So they did say that things may significantly change in this project. And we basically at this stage, basically this is our belief, but things shouldn't be relied upon as absolutely in stone within the future. And I thought that was quite good. And again, you don't see this in white papers where they outline the risk to the investor or the speculator, and I thought that was quite a good story. And they did say down here that license approvals are not assured in all jurisdictions. So again, you don't really see that, and I thought that was quite good. Look, it is a fairly long presentation, so I'm going to probably, go over a few things fairly quickly. The token summary, it was actually ROC token, RKT, and basically this token is being used on the GBX exchange for listing fees, sponsorship fees, trading fees, corporate fees, fund fees, money fees, and rewards and all that sort of thing, and community initiatives. Sorry if I've got spelling mistakes here. And effectively, people have to pay listing fees with RKT. It's going to be on the Ethereum platform, where, obviously it's compliant, but I do have problems with the Ethereum platform. Again, Ethereum's got a few problems. It's not very fast. Obviously, it's not as fast as Ripple, but also it has a big problem with multi-signature wallets. It is fairly slow, and Ethereum are going from the POW to POS to make their system faster and to make transactions faster and scalability. ROC GBX didn't mention anything about the new Ethereum system going from one to the other, and didn't mention anything about the fork, so I don't know where they stand on that, but that's something you've got to be mindful of as well, that Ethereum will be having a fork going from POW to POS. Also, they did say that there's two components of this GBX, and it's going to be a utility token, and also they're trying to create a financial service with multiple products. So they did issue 900 million of RKT, which is a fair amount of issuance. They had a minimum 10 million they wanted to get. They actually got 27 million, and the token price was 0.10 US, which I didn't think the price was that bad, given we've had other exchanges out there that were showing more. Say, for example, the one I just mentioned, the LCCE, they're showing 0.15 per token. Quash was out there showing, $1. But there's a lot of other, startups that show, a token price for a lot higher than that. They did accept US dollar payments in Ethereum for the ICO. And as I said, the ICO went very well, and it did go oversubscribed. So that was a good story from GBX's point of view, particularly. What makes GBX different to other cryptocurrency exchanges is it's a subsidiary of the Gibraltar Stock Exchange. And so effectively, they're touting and marketing, and they did market very well, that it's the first licensed and regulated exchange. They're trying to get the first licensed and regulated exchange in Europe. And it's a subsidiary of the Gibraltar Stock Exchange, which is a good story because the Gibraltar Stock Exchange is licensed by the European Union. The only thing I will say about that is the Gibraltar Stock Exchange, I've actually gone into it. It's a very, very small stock exchange. It basically hardly has any listings. It's tiny. And also in Gibraltar, you've got a population of about 35,000 people. So it's a tiny, tiny population of people and a tiny, tiny exchange. I just feel that maybe they would have been better off doing it somewhere else, like Malta, but clearly they have a competitive advantage in the fact that they're a direct subsidiary of the Gibraltar Stock Exchange, so they can lever off the resources of the Gibraltar Stock Exchange, which is probably a fairly good story, but it doesn't tell us what sort of trading systems and what sort of systems the Gibraltar Stock Exchange uses. Like in Australia, for example, the Australian Stock Exchange and all the brokers use Iris, which is an equity trading system. But, I was trying to find out what sort of system does the Gibraltar Stock Exchange use, and it didn't actually tell us, which is a negative of the white paper, I have to say. Another thing I will say also, we're now in a situation where there's over 500 crypto exchanges globally, and there's a lot of and a lot of broker type exchanges as well. So if you want to call them shadow crypto exchanges. If you look at CoinMark capitalizations list, they've got about 208 exchanges out there on their list. But, there's roughly, if you look at regional exchanges all over the world, Canada and everywhere else, there's roughly about more than 500, and that list is growing. And, it's growing and growing because there's so many people that are interested in setting up exchanges everywhere. Now, obviously, there's going to be a push for clients, and how do you get those clients? The good thing about GBX is, though, I will say, they had a strategic partner, which is Quinon, who invested 2.5 million in GBX. And we are seeing that a lot in the crypto exchange space, particularly when Goldman Sachs via Circle paid $400 million for Polynex. CoinCheck has just taken over Monex. South Korean investment bought Bitstamp for $400 million. Japan Yahoo is to buy 40% of BitArg exchange, and BitThumb to partner with BitPay. So this industry of crypto exchanges, even though there's 500 out there, eventually there will be mergers and acquisitions, there'll be amalgamations, even though there are a lot of people setting up crypto exchanges, and eventually they'll all come together, and the bigger exchanges will take out the smaller ones. So the industry, the sector itself is a very interesting sector. And I think there'll be a lot of opportunity in terms of, exchanges, crypto exchanges being taken out by the bigger ones. If you look at the US, particularly US Coinbase and Genesis are licensed and insured, and effectively, even though they're not owned by a stock exchange, but eventually there could be a situation where they will get taken out by the larger stock exchanges. And, it's going to be a very, very interesting space. So for me, personally, for my own portfolio, I am an active investor in cryptocurrency exchanges, because I do believe that traditional stock exchanges will start looking at them and taking them over. And that's what we've certainly seen with Goldman Sachs, who via Circle, which they own, paid $400 million for Polynex. So I do think the wholesale investor will come in and basically, take out the bigger. So GBX will be applying for a license under the Gibraltar Financial Services Commission, and also under their other regulation as well. And basically we'll be looking to list digital assets on their crypto exchange. And they do say they'll be subject to an institutional grade approval process, which I think is interesting. But essentially they don't say what that's going to be, what the process of that is going to be, whether it's a credit assessment approval, whether it's a longevity approval of the cryptos, or what. So I'd really like to see that process, but it's not outlined in the white paper. And the only thing I will comment on, I have seen other people doing an ICO review of GBX, and they're basically saying to clients, if they do an institutional, grade approval process, then you don't have to do your due diligence. Well, that's not the case. You should always be doing your due diligence, because it doesn't tell you anywhere where these guys, how these guys are going to do the grade process. And don't forget, these guys have a vested interest in getting more, more cryptocurrencies up on their exchange, because they actually get paid for them. So, you as the buyer, you need to do your own due diligence and your own credit assessment, and your own longevity, and your own ICO risk assessment. Really, really important, because this, the institutional grade process is not outlined anywhere. And what is it? Is it a credit process or whatever it might be? So that's fairly important. They do say in this ICO that they'd like some interaction between the stock exchange and the cryptocurrency exchange, in terms of the funding they can get from the stock exchange and the traditional equity market and the traditional bond market. And they're basically saying they're hoping for a wider capital base coming from the traditional equity market and the traditional bond market to the blockchain exchange, where they can, people that are actually trading equities or trading bonds can actually see the cryptocurrency exchange as well, and essentially, take some positions in that. Now, I don't know to the extent that that's going to happen, because it will take some time. From what I can gather, institutional investors, yes, are, trying to get their head around cryptocurrency, and I do believe they will come in. Certainly, George Soros has made that fairly clear. He's got $27 billion or so to invest in the cryptocurrency market, and there's a couple of large whales like himself. Institutional investors are looking at it. Certainly, people from Goldman Sachs and traders from JP Morgan are all giving up their foreign currency or their equity trading jobs, high-paying jobs, and going and setting up hedge funds for cryptocurrency. So maybe in the future, a couple of years from now, you will see that interaction between the cryptocurrency exchange and the traditional bond market exchange, bond market over the counter, or the equity market exchanges, essentially. So it will be interesting to keep an eye out for that. So just going forward, really this is going long, very long already. Sorry about that. Just we have got a lot to get through. I'll try and make it as quick as possible. Just some of these slides. What they want to do basically, you've got GBX, the blockchain, and they're going to offer all these different services, corporate services, e-money, e-exchange, service division, all that sort of thing. Under obviously the licensing of Gibraltar, and then they've got the stock exchange itself, the global market, which is here, which has got funds and debts and tokenized securities. In the white paper itself, it doesn't define tokenized securities, and it should. And also the stock exchange, which is the main market, which is regulated by the European Commission. So again, they've got funds and debt and tokenized securities. Very quickly, we'll go to just very quickly the distribution. Everything was great. So most of the money is going to be sitting obviously in 27% of that or so is going to be sitting in reserves. An allocation is going to be made to community development, liquidity. Early backers 13%, founders and staff 13.7%. I won't go too much into that because we don't have a lot of time. I don't want to waste your time here. And then marketing and technology and liquidity, 40% of the proceeds were going to that, which I think is very good because you need a lot of liquidity in cryptocurrency markets to make them work. You need obviously buyers and sellers, and the question is how are they going to get those buyers and sellers? Do you have, like in our equity market, where you actually have professional traders that make a market in options, for example, to create that liquidity? And the equity market itself with shares is an exchange traded system. So you basically need a lot of buyers and sellers to make a market fairly liquid. And that's going to be interesting to see how they do that. And you can look through the rest of that side, which I won't go into. So basically, that's pretty much that story. And I just want to really not focus too much on the other stuff. They intend to grow the business, they're saying, by obviously having a conducive environment. Government's going to support them, access to capital, financial and technical expertise. Essentially they've got other fintech companies in Gibraltar, Genesis, Zappo, Wavecrest, and the like. And they're basically saying because we can integrate between the stock exchange and the blockchain, we could potentially get clients from the stock exchange. But when you look at the stock exchange in Gibraltar, it is fairly small, so that's where I have a reservation. And also they don't actually go into really how they're going to get the clients, just a very general thing. We're going to do some marketing, and we're going to, do some competitions, and we might advertise through Twitter and everything else. But, now that there's some restriction on advertising through Twitter, Facebook, and the social media, how do you get those clients? And I'm always asking the question because you need to get clients to generate revenue for this cryptocurrency to go higher. And without revenue for a business, the business falls dead in the water. So I'm always asking the question, where are they going to get the revenue from? How are they going to get the clients? Do they get brokers to look for clients for them, where they pay a broker a fee? Do they actually go out there and target, 25-year-old males that tend to be in crypto markets? Do they target middle-aged women, for example, in Africa? Do they target, older blokes, the baby boomers in America? Exactly. When you're talking about sales, you need the target sales. What is the target industry that you're going to target? Who's got money? Who's going to be interested? Who wants this sort of risk? Older people don't tend to want this sort of crypto risk. Young people do. Be specific. Who are you going to target? Are you going to target young dentists, for example? Whereas young dentists in this country earn a lot of money and they like to take on risk. How are they going to get those clients, and what sort of clients are they going to be? And that's what the sales, the sales targets and the sales projections should incorporate, and they should be in the white paper as well, but they're not. When you look at their team, their executive team, they've got literally a cast of thousands. I've looked at most of this. They've got incredible experience, law, blockchain, you name it. Again, looking at their, their technical team. Again, these people have got heaps of experience, mathematicians, blockchain programmers, you name it. Advisory team, the same story. So their team is excellent. They've got a cast of thousands, literally something like 40-odd people or so. So I don't have any problem, obviously, with the team. It's unbelievable. They've even got QCs, for example. So yes, they've got a great team, and if you believe that they can do it, then certainly they've got the team and they've got the money to do it, which I think is pretty amazing. So the team I don't have a problem with. Again, as I said, we need to understand how they're going to physically do this, and this is where I feel the paper lacks. It doesn't lack enough information in terms of how they're going to physically do this. The connection between the traditional stock exchange, what sort of system they use. Like I said, here in Australia, the traditional stock exchange uses Iris. How do you connect a traditional stock exchange using Iris, the equity system, with blockchain and cryptocurrency? And that's the difficulty. Blockchain and cryptocurrency, which is supposed to settle quickly, within a day at least, whereas the equity market on the traditional system side, say using, Iris and equity brokers will have another system. The share trade will physically be a trade today plus settlement of 2 days. It used to be a settlement plus 3, but now it's settlement plus 2. How do you connect that with the blockchain environment? And I feel within this white paper they don't outline that enough, and they don't talk about that enough. And given all the people they've got working on this ICO, given the background of these people, there should be a technical paper with that amount of detail. So it does bother me they don't have that amount of detail within this white paper or a technical paper. So that's a big negative for me, I have to say. Very quickly going forward. And, Ethereum, the multi-signature problem, they're not talking about, going from POW to POS. In Australia, like I said, we've got Iris. When I used to work at Citibank, Morgan Stanley, they had EBOS, which was another system for equities. And, we use a settlement system of Swift and Austraclear or Exigo. And again, these are all traditional, traditional equity systems and traditional settlement systems. So how do you marry that to a blockchain system? And that's another problem. So they don't have a viable product, and the roadmap in my mind needed to be more detailed as well. But plus the technical, there was no technical paper, and I was disappointed that there wasn't, and there was no GitHub as well. So very quickly going through the pros and cons. Yes, I like the way they inform the investors. I thought the token, the price was good. Plenty of upside if they're successful. Obviously, telling investors about everything and the sponsor buying, plus the law in Gibraltar is based on English law, so that's a good story. There's no VAT tax or GST like here in Australia, goods and services tax, or there's no capital gains tax either. So if you make money over there, obviously you don't have to pay anything over there. Also they had, know your client rules and AML, which is good. There'd be cheap transaction costs using GBX. Also, they can lever off the GSX exchange, which is a good story. And, they're regulated by the Europeans, the stock exchange there. Their team was very big, seemed to have a lot of experience, plus they had buy-in with Quinon. Sorry, spelling mistake there. The overall space, as I said before, exchanges, there will be a lot of mergers and acquisitions, and eventually they'll be taken out, the big ones, by fiat exchanges, and certainly the small ones will get taken out by the bigger ones. So, and, if you look at other exchanges, they've tended to do well, not all of them, but certainly if you look at Binance, they've done very well, and this is a similar model to Binance in the sense that it's got its own token, and if you use a token, you actually get cheaper trading. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes, and Binance certainly came from nowhere. In the last 12 months, Binance is now the biggest cryptocurrency exchange, and effectively they came nowhere. They literally 12 or 15 months ago weren't even known. So they've done amazing things, Binance, quite amazing. The negatives I have on this is Gibraltar's very small population, very small in terms of potential clients. They have to really be focused quite heavily on overseas clients, and the question is, how are they going to do that? It's not easy acquiring clients from other exchanges. What is going to be the lever to get clients to move, particularly when you've got to fill out paperwork and go through the AML process and, fill out, all the stuff and send your license and send, your utility bill and all this stuff. As a matter of fact, I get pretty sick of it. And, I just don't know whether I could be bothered, unless there's something in it for me, of course. And also in overseas markets, licensing and regulatory issues are going to take a long time. As we know in the crypto world, some countries are not pro cryptocurrency at all. They're very, very much against it. And, it may never ever happen, or they're just completely behind the eight ball. So it is tough, and you do have a lot of exchanges, a lot of brokers competing for the same client base globally. Yes, there is a big global client base, but it is hard to acquire clients. I know that because I've worked in financial markets all my life and also in sales, and it is tough. Again, no technical paper, and also no details of withdrawals. Yes, client support is a big one, and everyone knows what it's like not to have client support. I certainly do, working, sending emails to Bitfinex, sending emails to, Bittrex, and you don't get any email back, nothing. Or even Coinbase, you get no email back. I mean, their client support is terrible. And I have to say, even, with Bitfinex, I've got coins in there, and I've got US dollar in there, where I'd like to withdraw the currency, and I've had my paperwork with them since December of last year, and I'm still waiting for them to check my paperwork so that I can withdraw money. And that is a real annoyance with me, and there's nothing, obviously, in GBX's white paper to say, will there be problems with clients withdrawing money? And that's really annoying in itself. So that's a bit of annoyance. There's no GitHub, which always bothers me. And they should have a GitHub, given the team they've got. No marketable, viable product. And they talk about cold storage, but there's many different types of cold storage. And you've got to tell people what type of cold storage, because it's saying that a lot of the cryptocurrencies that clients have will be in cold storage, and there'll only be a minimum amount of cryptocurrencies on the exchange to avoid malicious attacks. But, a cold storage can be on your Nano, your Ledger Nano, it could be on your Trezor, it can be on, a piece of paper, that's locked up in a safe. There's many different types of cold storage. The issuance is relatively large, and what happens, and they do say what happens if there's no market for RKT within Gibraltar. I mean, the good thing is RKT is listed on 4 or 5 different exchanges, but the market is very slow and it's very low in volume. So RKT doesn't have any liquidity at the moment. Also, I'm surprised that they don't deal, this is GBX, they don't deal in Japanese yen or Korean won, and those markets are a huge market, and the Japanese yen is probably the second or the first, compared with the US, the second largest currency, fiat currency that's traded globally in the world. And as you know, Japan and Korea are very pro crypto markets, so it does surprise me. Their roadmap needs to be more detailed. They didn't enlighten us on their credit process, or, how they're going to list coins and how they're going to determine, the credit process, or, the process of putting on listing. What makes one coin or token better than the other? They need to really outline that to the end investor, as far as I'm concerned. And, there was no projection on what sort of business revenue they thought they were going to write, or how many clients, they believe they're going to get, because without clients, you've got no revenue. Pretty much that. Just very quickly, from my perspective, though, as I said before, I like the sector. I think there will be a lot of mergers and acquisitions, and fiat traditional markets like the equity markets will look to take over some of these cryptocurrency exchanges. And eventually, maybe 5 years down the track, you'll have a lot of mergers and acquisitions. The biggest issue for me is client base. How do they get it? Literally, I want to know really, and I'd be following this up, how do they physically get those clients? It's not enough to market to clients. You've physically got to call clients, invite them in, have events, have promotions where you get to meet the client and shake their hand. It's not enough sometimes to just do the marketing. And now that some of the social media platforms are all closed down, it's going to be very, very hard. But in saying that, it's a growing area. I would have felt they would have been better going to Malta. But, the ICO is a cheap bet. For me, for my personal account, and I'm not saying this for anyone else, but I would keep an eye on these levels for this crypto exchange. And, you know, if I could get this around, say, 6 cents US or something like that, I'd be pretty happy. Just for a small bet, pretty much. The token has traded, from what I could see, around 11 cents to about 26 cents. But look, I will be keeping an eye on this because it is of interest to me. And, you know, I did like the way in the white paper they basically outlined the risk and really focused on, you know, AML and pretty much the know your client rules and regulation. So that's my view. I'll put up this disclaimer there. There are risks in cryptocurrencies, and this is my personal view. I'm not giving you personal investment advice or anything like that. You have to go and see a specialist for that. But these are just some of the things I think about. Sorry, I didn't mean this to be half an hour. Sorry, I go too long. My apologies. And I really hope that helps. Please be safe. Look after yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to your family, you know, your friends, your animals, and just make it a kinder world. Thank you. And I hope I didn't go too long, and I hope you get something out of this. Thank you.